The tragedy of 9/11. Personal tragedies that confront us all. For centuries, Jewish tradition has spoken to problems such as these, the issues of suffering and healing. The ancient Mishaberach prayer, the traditional Jewish prayer for healing, has provided strength throughout the ages and to this very day.
Tuesday, September 11th, of all dates, I took the subway down to Brooklyn Bridge Station, walked up the stairs at 8:45 in the morning, and saw a crowd of people silently staring south.
I thought I had seen absolutely everything, but 9/11 dwarfed all other experiences.
And found myself staring at an enormous black hole at the top of the World Trade Center with flames spewing out of it. 15 minutes later, I saw a second plane crash into tower number 2, an enormous explosion which you could feel physically transmitted through the shock waves through the air. Huge flames, black hole, people screaming, running every which way.
I was called to report to the temporary headquarters near Ground Zero and to try to minister to those who had been affected.
This enormous, deep, black cloud of heavy, heavy smoke erupted out of the collapse and sped up the street.
We initially thought that there would be many injured police officers and discovered that most of the officers who had been affected were killed or missing. Many of the officers have never been discovered. We lost 33 officers in one night.
The question is, in Jewish life, is there anything in our tradition that helps us face being overwhelmed, whether it's a threat of an enemy, a threat of illness, some catastrophe? Is there anything in our own tradition that gives us strength?
When you speak to families who have lost a loved one, I quite frankly try to speak in the spirit of Job.
The book of Job is about a man who undergoes tremendous travail, and his faith as he goes through this difficulty.
Job had no answer, and Job was told that there really is no answer to human suffering. We don't know why people are singled out to be killed or to lose all that they love and cherish. But we have to believe that just as the world has a natural order, there's a moral order, and that faith in God has to sustain us in the same way that ultimately that's the message that the book of Job conveys to those who have suffered down through the generations.
Elaine and I have been married 49 years. On April the 10th, 1986, she collapsed at our home from the rupture of 2 brain aneurysms. The number of people who survived one brain aneurysm is minimal. 2 is unheard of.
Rabbi Gerald Wolpe of Philadelphia personally faced the issues of Job. Why good people suffer, and maintaining faith despite that suffering.
When Elaine was in a coma, they told us that it was most unlikely that she would come out of it. But if she, by some miracle, would come out, she would be a vegetable, that there would be nothing left. And of course, we just didn't know what to pray for. And She came out of the coma, which was itself a miracle, and she had this blank, vacant stare in her eyes. And I said, you know, oh my God, you know, what they predicted has taken place. She couldn't respond, she couldn't talk. Seemed as if she didn't recognize us. And on Friday afternoon, our daughter-in-law walked into her room with Shabbos candles and wine, and put it next to the bed, and said to her, Mom, I want you to bend Shabbos licht with me. And Elaine turned to her and smiled. And that was our first recognition that there was somebody in there, which was just a marvelous way to become reacquainted with her. And that was Valerie, and she was been marvelous that way. She was in a coma for 9 days and came out of the coma damaged. In the center of the damage was in the speech area of her brain, so that she has brachioaphasia, which means that cognitively she's as clear as she ever was, but she can't bring that thought from brain to lip, which of course explains the tremendous frustration that she goes through. What are you supposed to do?
We can get angry, we can get upset, we can question, we can become skeptical, we can be disappointed. All of this is very normal, all of this is very human, but we dare not despair. We have to continue the battle to survive and to try to do the best we can.
I think there are two issues here. One issue is the necessity for prayer and for ritual. The other, which is much more difficult, is what should a person pray for? Judaism does not believe you should pray for things that cannot be changed. For example, the Talmud says if you're walking down the street and you hear someone say there's a fire in a house in the next block, you should never pray that it's not your house. It's not the correct thing to do. One, because it means it's going to be somebody else's house, which is immoral. Secondly, is because you can't change it. That house is already on fire. So there are things you cannot pray for. But what if you have somebody who is terminally ill and suffering over an extended period? Do you have the right to pray for death? Do you have the right to pray for any kind of surcease of that pain? These are part of the issues that are developing in bioethics today, when people can be kept alive longer and under very difficult circumstances, where in the past, if these conditions developed, they wouldn't last that long. She wouldn't have to pray for me. You give a Mishabera and just a formal Mishabera. Today, what are you going to pray for? That's becoming more and more of a moral issue. One prayer that I say every day that is of particular meaning to me and has been, and the prayer is in the morning ritual, B'chol yom tomid ma'aseh b'reishit, that every day God recreates the world. Because somebody once asked me, how did you manage to handle what you had to handle? And my answer was, I didn't chew off more time than I could swallow. Take one day at a time, 1 week at a time. You look for the next thing that's available in simchas or whatever you're going to be doing. And Goethe, I always had a sign on my desk from Goethe, the German author, Jeder Tag ist ein kleines Leben. Every day is a small life. And I think those are the prayers that you try to get as much out of that day, that week, which I think really has been my philosophy my whole life, right?
Oh, God.
Honey, it's me, it's not God. I can understand. But that's it. I think prayers that ask for time, for surcease, and for strength.
Our son died in 1977, the day after his 14th birthday. If you ever have to suffer a terrible loss, you know how much it hurts.
Jim and Susan Gerson had 3 children. When we visited them, Michelle was 17 years old and a senior in high school. Sherry was 13 and learning to play the piano. The girls had an older brother.
I absolutely thought he was the most gorgeous baby out. I think like most mothers feel. And then within the first month, though, after we brought him home, he had difficulty taking the bottle and did not gain enough weight. He would gain some weight, but not the normal amount of weight that most babies do gain.
At birth, Adam wasn't breathing normally and wasn't digesting food normally.
And was quite worried about his body and his health. And I remember saying to myself that either I have to treat him as a normal child or I have to get help for him.
Susan did get help for Adam. Adam grew up as a Mets fan, a computer whiz, and a youngster with a good sense of humor.
I have sisters, I fight with them, they fight with me. I have a mom and dad. I go to school. I think that's normal.
4 months after we visited Adam, the phone rang in the Gerson home.
It was very hard. We got the phone call about Adam's death about 10 o'clock at night. With total surprise. No expectation whatsoever that we were going to get this phone call. We had talked to him that day. He was feeling good. He had a great day. I remember he called me at the office. I spoke to Susan and said, it was terrific. I went out with the fellows for breakfast this morning, which is, you know, just a great experience. So the thing took us by storm. Total surprise.
We had seen Adam the weekend before his passing, and we had a wonderful time with him. He was in a rehabilitation center in Connecticut for the last month, and he was so happy.
I used to get such a kick when he would call me at the office and want to tell me about some wonderful thing that happened to him that day. I really miss getting those phone calls. That just gave a lift to the whole day. And I also have wonderful memories of doing things with him, of on a nice day, being able to get out and go someplace and walk and enjoy something.
It's almost like I realized like there were two Adams, the well Adam and the Adam that was very sick. And I just hope as time goes on that I'll remember more of the well Adam, because that's what I really would like to focus on.
In Flushing, New York, many who face suffering join cantor Moti Fuchs and turn to the traditional Mishaberach prayer in an evening of meditation, love, and joy.
The Mishaberach prayer, traditionally it's recited in the synagogue when someone is called to the Torah. The Mishaberach prayer says, God should have mercy on the person, may he bless and heal the sick, and then you fill in the name of the person to make them well, to send them refuah shlema, which is a classic Jewish term, a complete healing among all the sick of the Jewish people, the healing of body, the healing of soul, speedily in our day, and Omar Amen, and let us say Amen.
In Orthodox Judaism, only men put on phylacteries. The Hebrew word is tefillin, within which are the words from the Bible that prayer should be close to the supplicant's mind and heart. At the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, the academic and spiritual center of conservative Judaism, and throughout the conservative movement, women too wear tefillin and read from the Torah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei lanu betocheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Usually the relative of the person who is sick comes up to the person who's running the Torah service and says, I want to make a Mishaberach prayer for so-and-so. In the Ashkenazic tradition, you always use the person's mother's name. In other words, you say Reuven, son of Sarah, or Rivka, daughter of Sarah. There are various theories as to why the mother's name is used. One theory says that because pater incertus, mater certa, that the father, you never know who it is, but the mother, you always know who it is. I don't buy that explanation. Another explanation is that mothers are more associated with mercy, and perhaps that's why their name is used. The theory that I favor is that originally Mishaberach prayers and prayers for the sick were connected to magic in Judaism. And in classical magical formulas, you always use the name of the mother.
At this point in the service, we rise to say the Mishaberach, the blessing for healing of our loved ones. When I pause in the blessing, please feel free to come up and say a name of somebody that you're praying for. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah, Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et hacholim.
Cynthia Bat Sarah.
Cynthia Bat Sarah.
Robin Bat Chana.
Et Robin Bat Chana.
Shaul Ben Chaya Sarah.
Et Shaul Ben Chaya Sarah.
Mordechai Ben Miriam.
Et Mordechai Ben Miriam.
Carmela Miriam Bat Sarah.
Et Carmela Miriam Bat Sarah. Et Rivka Bat Betty. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem, Lahachazikam Ularapotam, V'yishlach Lehem Mehira Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim, Refuat HaNefesh Urefuat HaGuf, B'toch Sha'ar Cholei Yisrael Milzikot, Ulerefuah Krova Lavo, Hashta Bagala Vizman Kariv, V'nomar Amen.
Another basic tradition connected to healing and the sick is Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick. It's found in many places in the Talmud, and there are many wonderful stories about Bikur Cholim.
Our Code of Jewish Laws has fascinating paragraphs paying tremendous detailed attention on how should one behave in visiting the sick. You can't upset them, you can't bring them bad news. I mean, there are all sorts of things.
In one of the passages it says that if you visit a sick person, you take away 1/60th of their illness. Right? So presumably then if you visited 60 times, the person would get better. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. But the idea, I think, psychologically is sound. That when you visit a sick person, you make them feel better, and you take away, so to speak, 1/60th of their illness.
I mean, it's fascinating to see that Jewish law has tremendous focus on the rules of visiting the sick, of helping, by the way, not only the sick, but the family of the sick, how to help the community of people who are taking care of the sick.
The idea of being there with the sick person, just being there, even not doing anything, gives tremendous support to the sick. Gives the person a feeling of not being alone, of not having been abandoned.
There is a wonderful Talmudic story which shows the emphasis of visiting the sick, how important it is. A rabbi in the Talmud, which is a legal entity, which explains all the laws in the Bible, has a lot of legends and stories. A rabbi in the Talmud raised the question, if a person prays for someone who is sick, what language should that person pray in? Is it Hebrew, Aramaic, which was the language spoken in those days, some other language? And so there's a big discussion in the Talmud, should you do it in Hebrew, Aramaic? And finally another rabbi says, when you come to pray for somebody who's sick, you're not praying for the angels, you're praying directly to God. God understands every language, So always pray in the language that you're comfortable with, which is really a very beautiful story.
In modern times, many people seem to think that it's the rabbi's job to visit the sick. That's not the classical Jewish position. The classical Jewish position is that we were all required to do Bikur Cholim. We're all required to visit the sick. It's not something we should relegate to a rabbi or a chazan, a cantor, or someone else.
When I was little, I grew up in a Jewish home, and we were taught that it's very important to be aware of somebody who's sick and to visit them and to be with them so that they shouldn't feel alone. And I just kept that in the back of my head. Then I joined our synagogue and I learned a lot more about that, how important it is to take care of people, not to let them be by themselves. After they took me into the rooms and I was with the patients for a while, I realized I loved it. I was just happy to be with them. And you learn so much from people who are sick. First you're scared, but then it makes you less scared because you realize that a sick person could be very much alive. If something hurts them badly in their body, it doesn't mean they're not well as a person. And you could make them feel even better if you show that you care. Even small things, like bringing them a glass of water, or making them comfortable, or letting them just talk. Or if they don't want to talk, you just sit, you hold their hand. Any kind of thing. Or what you did, bringing a car to somebody. How did you feel afterwards?
Happy.
Ah, why?
I was giving sick people some stuff that might make them feel better.
Oh, Max, that's delicious. You know why? To a lot of people much older than you who don't know that yet. It just cheers them up so much. And I just love volunteering. And now that you've been in the hospital, I think you're going to be that kind of person too.
Today, as people live longer, many find comfort in hospice care, at home and in the hospital.
The concept of hospice is caring for people who are at some stage towards the end of their life, patients who there is no more curing care for them. That means that there is no cure for their disease.
When I first heard of hospice, like so many other people, I was so mistaken about it. I thought it was something that helped you to die. And then I found out that it's something that helps you to live.
The care that we give, the idea behind it is to relieve suffering.
I'm so impressed. I can't begin to tell you how wonderful these people are.
I think this is what actually is behind the whole idea of Bikur Cholim, of visiting the sick.
Well, they provided an emotional stability for me, love, caring.
The issue is, I don't want to feel as alone as I feel right now, all by myself, helpless, overwhelmed. I want to be talking to somebody with the hope that that somebody hears me. I want to feel connected. I don't want to feel isolated.
If you think back perhaps 100 years ago, that was what everybody did. When a person would pass away in his own home, with his family around him, with a doctor next to him, with no tubes, probably very little medication. But with modern science and modern technology, we are forgetting the humane, the human being.
There's a young rabbi at hospice by the name of Charles Rudansky, who comes to visit me at home.
Remember last time we met, it was in your house, and can you explain, can you remember that pain that you were suffering?
Something happened, and I suddenly started to shake, and I had no control over it. I don't want to say, why is it happening to me? I don't want to feel sorry for myself. But once in a while, when your entire life changes, you feel cut off from your past. And sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I find tears rolling down my face. I don't know why. I just wake up crying. And after a few minutes, I say, enough. I have to stop. And I try to think of the good things and how grateful I am, especially to Hospice and everybody connected.
The idea of hospice and the philosophy is to be present, to be alive, to really connect with those souls. And the way we do it, the way we've done it, is through prayer, like we've prayed through the Psalms, through Misha Berach, the idea of saying a blessing for those that are ill. That's always done in the synagogue. It's done on Shabbos and on Mondays and Thursdays when the Torahs have been taken out. And it could be done at the bedside. Yes. We could say a Misha Berach, we could go ahead and ask God to bless you and your soul and your family for better days.
The last stage of life where people feel, you know, what is there to do, even that stage, that last point in life, can be eased from a religious point of view. For example, my father-in-law died at age 100. He had all of his marbles. He was extremely sharp to the day of his death, a very learned Jew. And one of the funny incidents that happened is 3 days before he died, we were there. He was slipping, and he called me to the bedside, and he said, Sam, 3 days before he died, how can I improve my health? And I gave him a brilliant answer. I said, stop eating so much creamed herring. He laughed. Shortly after that, he began slipping further, and I took out the book of Psalms, the Tehillim, and which he was very familiar with, and I began reading the Psalms out loud, selecting specific ones that are particularly calming, peacemaking, easy to hear. And just impulsively, I began singing the liturgy. The Yiddish word is to daven. I began praying with melodies, with very, very old, traditional, ancient melodies. Yevarech yireh Adonai, ha'ktanim ha'gdolim, Yosef Adonai alechem, alechem ve'al b'nechem, Baruchim atem l'Adonai, Ose shamayim va'aretz, shamayim shamayim l'Adonai, va'aretz natan livnei adam, lo hametim yehallelujah, v'lo kol yodei duma, ve'anachnu nevarech ya, me'ata ve'ad olam, me'ata ve'ad olam, hallelujah. I think even when you're praying not to bring about a change, but to bring comfort, that's an enormous gift that you give to somebody. And if it's you who aren't familiar with prayer, but maybe the person who is sick or dying is, the idea of taking a chance, even if it feels funny to you, and acting that way, I think is very, very helpful.
The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian, the Lord is your protection, even in this moment of despair and illness, for he is at your right side. By day the sun will not harm you, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all evil and illness. The Lord will guard your life. We ask God to help you and bring peace and comfort and healing to this dear soul and spirit and good Ashes Chayil, a woman of valor. Ruth.
And there are people who will hang on to life till their very last hair.
These are people who are fighting for life. They're in chemotherapy or radiation or just facing surgery or going to have surgery. The clock is ticking faster than you want it to. You're tense, you're nervous, you don't want to waste time because you don't know how much time you have left. What can you do to take charge of your life and make time count? And again, it's interesting, from a religious point of view, the idea of making your life meaningful, since it seems to be slipping away faster than you're comfortable with, doing things which make you feel effective, stronger, better, but more than anything else, useful. Jewish tradition has a lot to say about that. During World War II, in the camps, there were two groups of people who survived better and longer than the others. One group was the Orthodox Jews, who found a way, praying, expecting, hoping God would help, rescue, something. They found a way to maintain belief in the meaningfulness of life. And the other group, which is fascinating, were the communists, who, as different as they were, also found a political system which gave meaning to what they were going through. Meaning in life, and connecting to Jewish tradition, Jewish roots, I think, does that, is far more important than I think people think that it is.
And there are those who will say, okay, I've done my part in life. A woman, she's 74 years old, Holocaust survivor. She'd been in concentration camps together with her sister, her parents, and her brother. Her parents and her brother perished in the camps, and she came out with her sister and joined up then after the war with 4 other sisters and brother, I think. She she's not aware of her diagnosis. The family tried, she's ultra-Orthodox, Haredi. Her family tried to keep away from her diagnosis. And she does not actually know the name of her disease, but she knows that she's very ill. I was by her this week, and she got hold of my hand and she said, Chana, I'm ready. I've had enough. I've seen enough. I've suffered enough. I want to go and join my brother. I'm ready to go. They're fighting here for me and with me, and I'm going along with them a little bit, but it's not going to last for too long. And at some point, I'm just going to lie back and say to my brother, let me come and join you.
Jewish tradition believes in a world to come. To be sure, that's a belief which developed rather late in the days of the Talmud. There's only a few references in the Bible, the most important being the 12th chapter of the book of Daniel. But Jews do believe in a world to come, and the realization that life on earth is not everything. Families, I think, are helped a great deal when they're told that whatever pain their loved ones went through, the pain is over, and now their souls are in the hands of God, and they can look down upon us and continue to bless us, and the realization that there is a continuation beyond the confines of these terrestrial environs can bring a great deal of consolation to people.
I must say that it's very interesting in terminal care. Very few, very, very few people have actually asked, give me something to help me hasten death.
One of the other basic concepts related to healing in the Jewish tradition is the sanctity of human life. In other words, it's considered perhaps the prime mitzvah of pikuach nefesh. Pikuach nefesh means preserving human life. And even though we have many other important commandments in Judaism, pikuach nefesh doche. Pikuach nefesh pushes off most of the other commandments. And thus, for example, in various passages in the Talmud, it says, Pikuach nefesh dochesh Shabbat, saving a human life pushes aside the Sabbath rules. In other words, normally you're not supposed to drive on the Sabbath. If someone is seriously ill, not only are you allowed to drive them to the hospital, you are required to drive them to the hospital. And as it says, the greater the scholar, the more he is required to do so. In other words, you don't relegate saving a human life to a kid or to someone who you might think is not important. In cases of pikuach nefesh, of saving a human life, the rabbi is the one who's supposed to save the human life.
Life is perhaps the most important thing in Jewish principles. Even when we go to bed at night, and we say our prayers before we go to bed, and we symbolically give over our soul to the Lord in the morning when we wake up, and we say, Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam. We thank the Lord for returning our soul to us and giving us life for that day.
Another basic concept worth discussing is the basic Jewish attitude towards medicine and doctors. In other words, is it a good thing to go to a doctor and have him heal you, or is it a bad thing? There's some religions in the world that feel that healing is God's work, God's business, and we shouldn't get involved other than in prayer. So they do not go to doctors, and if someone is sick, they pray, they recite special prayers, and either it works or it doesn't work. If the person dies, they say it's God's will. That is not the classical Jewish attitude towards medicine and healing and doctors. The classical Jewish attitude is that doctors are doing God's work and helping a person get better, and that is a mitzvah.
The doctor is a shaliach. The doctor is a missionary of the Lord who's been given the knowledge in order to keep the life going until the Lord decides to take it away again.
And there's a famous story told about one of the towns in Eastern Europe in the 19th century where there was a cholera epidemic. And three famous rabbis went up on the Bina, went up on the platform in the middle of Yom Kippur service, and they said, the doctors told us that because of the cholera epidemic, everybody has to eat. And they recited the blessings for eating, and they ate on Yom Kippur, the most important fast day of the Jewish calendar, in front of the entire congregation, because they wanted everybody to get the message that they are required to eat just as the rabbis are required to eat. So when it comes to pikuach nefesh, saving a human life, and you're allowed to desecrate the Sabbath, you're allowed to eat on Yom Kippur if someone is seriously ill, and so on and so forth, the rabbis are supposed to lead the way because human life takes precedence over most of the other commandments.
One particular experience that I had that I will never forget was on Rosh Hashanah. I was asked to go to LaGuardia Airport, where a temporary morgue had been set up, and to conduct Rosh Hashanah services. First of all, I'd never ridden before on Rosh Hashanah. On the other hand, when I was asked to conduct this service for an emergency response team which included over 100 Jews who came from all over the country, and they had given up their families, they had given up their observance of Rosh Hashanah to do this emergency work, I said to myself, how can I deny them of service if that's what they want? And I went with my cantor, who brought along a chauffeur, and I had what I thought was the most meaningful Rosh Hashanah service that I ever conducted in my entire life, because I was able to share with people who are doing so much good out there at that temporary morgue, helping families and identifying the deceased to find their way to the essence of what Rosh Hashanah is all about, which is really self-understanding and an appreciation of the nature of the world in which we live. Out of tragedy can come great insight and understanding.
As a religious person, I believe that the life on this earth has been given to me in order to sanctify the name of the Lord. And as life has been given to me, at some point in this life, I have to return what has been given. I have to return my life to the Lord. If we think, I think the opening pasuk, the opening sentence in the funeral service is Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. And this, I have to believe, and I do believe, is how my life is. It's my duty to keep life going ונשמרתם את נפשותיכם. You have to preserve your life because it has been given to you as a gift, and it's your duty to live it through. At some point in this life, the Lord will take it back again. Adonai natan, Adonai lakach.
נשמה, נשמה שנתת בי, טהורה, טהורה היא. נשמה, נשמה שנתת בי, טהורה, טהורה היא. נשמה, נשמה שנתת בי, טהורה, טהורה היא. נשמה, נשמה שנתת בי, טהורה, טהורה היא.
Today, religion is not a common experience for a large number of people.
Many people today come together in small groups, communities of intimacy, and adapt Jewish traditions to modern concerns. At the beginning of every month of the Jewish calendar, Janice Rouse leads a group of women who share those concerns and leave them behind in a symbolic bowl.
The idea today is to take time to think about what it is that you need healing for, what it is that you feel that we need as a world to be healed, which probably won't take very long to think about that. And it's an internal time. So there's a beautiful thing about Judaism, I think, that we recognize that there is a need for community even when we're doing our individual, communal, individual prayer, that we need community to do our individual. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in the fact that often what we need to do alone, we often need to do in community.
I'd like to strengthen my ties to the community because it's always been strong for me to go it alone, to do it myself. And I'm very interested in creating health for myself and others, and I need to work with others and to get from the community and to give to the community.
Let's ask from each other, it's just one at a time, what it is that you need from us as you go into this new month. Just take a few minutes to find that which you need strength and support for. And let's imagine that we're putting it here in this bowl.
I want to stop holding things in. And I think what I need from the bowl is openness where there can be openness.
I'm going to leave in the bowl all the clogged places in my heart. I think I just want to kind of take away all of my shields. I've been feeling like it's time to just be able to fully express and fully take risks in a way that I haven't been able to do.
So I know that there are places in the world where we have to hold a lot in, and I think that that's true, but in the places where we can be open, we must be open.
Letting go and loving openly, just with a full, open, raw, sensitive heart. So that's what I want.
I'd like to leave some of my fears in the bowl. We live in a very difficult and frightening time here and in the world.
Family, work, I feel like I am carrying the world on my shoulders. The continuing image of burning towers that I see every morning when I walk my son to school. We saw it walking to school, gazing down 6th Avenue. It's always, always there. So I'm going to leave that in the bowl.
I live at Ground Zero and was out of the house for many months and had to repack everything up, and it's a slow healing process too, to get your life back together. So I want to just leave that there.
We get lost in our daily life, in our work lives, in our parenting, in our being spouses, and our busyness. So we need time to go and consciously say, this is soul time. It's time for me to breathe. It's time for me to center. It's time for me to take all that's outside and bring it inside, and take all that we don't need inside and take it outside. And it's a recycling time.
So that's what I take from the group. Strength.
I think we should put our hands on the bowl. Think about the fact that the word for breath in Hebrew is nishima, and the word for soul is nishama. So it's a time to bring together our life force to strengthen that which makes us who we are. So I think we can just take a minute to just put a kavanah that everybody's intentions for this sacrifice, that it can be released. Can you hear ratzon? All right, so let's go to the chuppah. This is the hardest part because you have to do this arm exercises.
This is upper body exercise, everybody.
This is where you get your opportunity.
Sure. Come in.
So what we do in this talit is we take a moment with the image of being tachat kanfei Shekhinah, being under the umbrella of Shekhinah, which, interestingly enough, this was my wedding talit. This is the talit that my husband wore when we got married, and that my uncle, my husband's uncle who married us, wrapped us in this talit. So this has a lot of, and my husband who performs weddings uses this often as the chuppah for his brides and grooms.
Sacred.
So this is a very special talit. So we do two things under the talit. We say Shehecheyanu for those of us who have never been to Rosh Hodesh. And if you are one of those people, then you get to go in the center. So Nahani, are you one of those people?
Not really, but I
No?
could be.
Yeah, what about you, Melissa? Do you go to Rosh Hodesh generally?
I do, yeah.
All right.
I haven't been to this Rosh Hodesh.
Okay, so you two go under here. What about you, Ellie? Okay. So this is Shehecheyanu for those of us who are celebrating Rosh Hodesh with this group for the first time. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh. That you were able to come at this moment and be with us to celebrate this ritual is a great gift to us. And may you both go from strength to strength as you are beginning and becoming Jewish leaders in our community with your open heart, your amazing gifts of beauty and youth, and your expression of who you are. So thank you for being part of our Rosh Hodesh. Amen. So come back and we'll do the Mishaber for healing. We sing it with the intention of bringing healing to the people that we know in our lives, the people that we don't know, the people in the community at large. At this time, for me, it's a time to bring in all of our Israeli brothers and sisters, the ones who are on the front lines, and really putting themselves in a way right in the center of our tradition. And for me, it's a time every Rosh Hodesh to really think about the individuals that I know who are living there, who are dealing on a daily basis with the fear and the terror. And also to use it as a time to get strength for ourselves, to stick up for what we believe and stand up for what we believe also we need to do as Jews in the diaspora, as American Jews, what our responsibility is. So I think we all need this healing, right?
In a support group of the Jewish Healing Center, people who are ill gain strength from one another.
What lies behind Jewish healing is the desire to make the Jewish tradition and the Jewish community more accessible to Jews who are suffering, to those who are ill, to their family members, and to Jews who are bereaved. Now in about 30 cities, there's a Jewish healing program, often based at the Jewish Family Service Agency, as here in New York with the Jewish Board, but always in cooperation with local synagogues and Jewish community centers. We're trying to enable people to hold on to the Jewish tradition and to mine it for its riches, but also to adapt it, also to build upon it at the very same time. People actually are surprised sometimes by how many blessings begin Baruch Atah Adonai.
We bless God so many times each day, and the rabbis asked why. I mean, why is that necessary? Why does God require so many blessings? And he said he tolerates the blessings because he knows they're so good for us.
When healing is happening, it's happening, you know, from God down to us, but particularly between us as people.
You know, there's a woman who comes, you know, she's my home attendant because I might seem like I'm okay, but I'm really not. And I need help at home, and she comes to help me. And over time, you know, we talk about very simple daily kind of things. Over time, just the simplest thing, like there's something that I'll need, and really it's not even up to me to ask her to get it for me. But she'll say, oh, you know, when I'm done with such and such, I'll go out and get you the salad that you needed, or whatever it is. And something very simple like that, that doesn't seem like a prayer or a blessing or anything, actually helps to heal me. Because there's something going on between Clara and myself that's very loving.
That when you talk about Clara doing something for you, it's an act of healing, that she finds these small things to do for you. When we learned about these rules that none of us ever knew before, we were sick, but we didn't know that when someone came to visit you, there were very simple things that were part of the rules of Judaism. You know, you sweep the floor, you make chicken soup. Our grandmothers taught us that, but it's part of the tradition. We never knew that before. We wished our friends and our family knew that, but that the healing things that we do for each other, or that people could do for us, and we've learned to do, are sideways. You know, that what we do for each other, and that's, I know for me, that's been one of the blessings of this group, is that we've learned how to listen to each other and, in a sense, heal each other.
This group knows all too well how the basic blessings, the basic blessings of physical needs and physical functioning really are essential for life. And when those are challenged, it's hard to embark on all kinds of other journeys. On the other hand, it triggers many people to grow very greatly in their spirits, in their other than physical dimensions, emotional, interpersonal.
Praying when you're just angry and desperate is about as complicated as eating when you're hungry. That's when you're supposed to pray. I mean, it's a very Jewish thing to raise your fist and say why.
It's acknowledging the presence of God in the worst of times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's a complaint or a gratitude, you're saying, I know you're there, and I'm expressing myself to you, and maybe I'm in a bad mood and I'm angry, but I'm acknowledging you.
Don't you find it interesting that it's at times when you're at your worst and you're feeling very sorry for yourself that you reach out to God even more?
Mm-hmm. I keep feeling like we should hold hands and do something, because I feel like when we did that in the past, we always felt a connection, a deeper connection. So
And the word here is reconnection.
Len started it.
That's right.
Yeah. Right? Remember?
Blame me.
That's a good idea.
Sorry, my hands are cold.
And we often
blessed
did,
yes.
blessed each
We
other.
went around and just said whatever.
Well, they were blessings.
Yeah.
That's what they were. You're right.
Exactly. No, they were intentional.
I'm thankful for our reconnecting. I wanted to thank you all for that.
Thankful to be here with people I love, haven't seen in a long time. And I'm just glad I got here.
To me, I almost feel as if it was bashert, that there was something about this day that was going to happen at some point, and when Simcha called me, it was like something that I had to be here. It was so within me to do this, no matter how difficult it was to get here. And it feels great.
It's been quite a while since we've all been together, and now that we are, it's not only wonderful right now that we're all together, but it brings back all the wonderful feelings we've had together and the love we've had for one another, and it's really great. I feel blessed.
Not only do we bless each other, but our lives, we ourselves, as we encounter the world and each other, have the potential of being a blessing to each other.
I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous, but I feel that every time we're in the room like this, that we bring God into the room together.
Just gave me chills.
Thank you, all of you.
In the face of illness and suffering, the ultimate Jewish commitment echoes the biblical injunction, choose life. For a copy of this program, call 212-678-8950. The preceding program was a presentation of the Jewish Theological Seminary.